What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Bold Miniseries. As you know, the miniseries is an opportunity for Come Home to bring men together to talk about the ups and downs of the hair loss journey, as well as talk about manhood in general. Today, I have a special guest with me, my boy Dustin, straight out of the Raw School of Business. Me and Dustin have been going to school together for the last 2 years. Sadly, we're about to graduate. But Dustin has been a highlight and a spark for the entire Ross community over his last 2 years. So glad to have him today on our episode. Dustin, tell the people about yourself, maybe, where you're from, what you're working on in school, what you're doing after school, and just some things that you're really into.
Yeah. Hey, Kenny, thanks for bringing me on the show, man. This is great. It's been a real journey working with you and getting to know you the last 2 years. Yeah, everybody, my name is Dustin Hubrex, and I'm originally from Minneapolis, born and raised. And I used to work at Deloitte Consulting, going back to work for Deloitte Consulting, and hopefully doing some really cool side hustle work in healthcare over in Chicago, and having a little fun and getting to know a bunch of people out there. And yeah, man, I just love working with speakers and experiences and doing all sorts of cool things and working with entrepreneurs. So it should be a fun time when I get out there. And so I'm happy to be chatting up with you and learning about your story and what's going to be happening. It's great.
So Dustin, before we get to the hair loss journey, I want to talk a little bit about, Minnesota. Did you actually grow up there? Does that make you a Vikings fan, or did you not grow up really into football?
Okay. So as weird as it is, I used to be, when I was in high school, yes, I grew up there. I was in high school over in the west suburbs and Excelsior area. For those of you from there know about that place. And I was a manager for the sophomore and JV and varsity football teams, baseball and women's lacrosse teams, and loved that. And then did not get into football afterwards. I went to the University of Minnesota and the Gophers, and they would lose all the time. And something about being like really tired and it's like dreary outside and cold and they were always losing. I was just like, oh, this is hard to get into this. And so anyway, no, I never really grew up to be a big football lover, but of course I know the sport and would appreciate a good football game like no one else, like anyone else.
So Dustin, that does not surprise me that you were a manager for a lot of sports in college or high school, because I know I see you in the gym all the time, working out whenever, pre-COVID, we'd always be in the gym working out. So I see you always get your workout on. Tell me what what does men's wellness and being in shape mean to you? Is that something that you've always been a big kind of champion of, or?
Yeah, that's great. Great question. I was kind of exposed to it in high school and always lifting a little bit. And so, you kind of learn a little bit of how it works. But unfortunately, I was a bigger dude. And around 2014, 13, 14, I was about 245 pounds, man. And I was a big boy. And that's when I saw the hair. And we'll talk about that. And, I think at that time, I certainly was pushing myself and challenging myself intellectually, and I was in all the student groups. I was leading all sorts of things. I was learning about entrepreneurship and building companies and organizations, and fell in love with that space. Right, I was building websites for people at 13 years old and charging people for it. And so that was crazy, cool, fun. But I didn't take care of myself, and so we'll get into that story in a little bit, but when I came into my MBA, I had two non-negotiables. One, which is to eat well, which means cooking, eat healthy meals on my own usually. And I use one of those freshly, other, name brand here, services as well, which really helps. But also to work out and maintain a healthy fitness program. I had come too far, I'm lost, closing in on 90 plus pounds now, and hopefully have built up some good muscles. So it's one of these things where I'm very proud of myself and I've come a long way. So I don't want to reverse that just because I'm studying, right? So
yeah, that's amazing, man. So I would have never known that. I see Dustin at least 3-4 times a week in the gym. Normally you're always on that track machine though.
Yeah. Well, so ever since COVID started, when the first gym closed down, because I'm a gay guy, of course, Instagram is just flooding, oh my God, we're freaking out. And so I was like, okay, wait, well, this is not good. And so I knew with COVID that travel budgets would get restricted. So I said, I have some open cash, right? I think I know it before everyone else do it. I went on Amazon and bought those adjustable dumbbells and my own kit and everything else, because I said, I need to keep as I said, non-negotiable. We got to keep doing this. And best purchase of my life. So usually you don't see me down there because I'm usually working out in my own little studio, tiny ass apartment up here. But I'll go down there because there's certain things that dumbbells can't do all that perfectly, like that lateral pull and that row. Those are great machines for the back, hard to replicate those. So you'll see me doing those usually I usually come down for a few workouts. That's hard to replicate. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, COVID was a big time, I think, for a lot of people, especially ones that were trying to focus on health and wellness. As Dustin mentioned, the gym closed down in our building for quite some time. So I was, regulated to doing lobby workouts. I was in the lobby.
Yeah, but you brought some people with you, my friend. I heard about some of the great work you've done.
Yeah.
You kept people going by making them. I mean, I heard about some of the workouts. I'm like, all those stairwells.
Last summer was intense, bro. It was probably the best shape I've ever been in my life for sure. And because we had nothing else to do, bro, but work and work out. We couldn't go out. There's nothing else going on.
Might as well work on something productive.
There you go. So, all right. So guys, everyone knows why we're here though. We want to learn a little bit more about Dustin's hair loss journey. How it's affected him. Obviously now he looks amazing with the super smooth bald head, but it took a while to get here, right? It didn't just happen like that. Look at him. So Dustin, if you could, man, take us back, bro. Take us back to, the days before you had the bald head. I don't know if you had like luscious locks, whatever that hair looked like prior to you noticing you might have been thinning. What was your hair like then, and what did it mean to you then?
Yeah, man. Oh my God. I mean, we got to go way back. And so because I mean, I don't know what my family did, what genes they passed down, because it's like 12 years old and the kid's balding already, like it was a nightmare. Poor guy. So I had a big old dirty blonde bowl cut. I just had beautiful hair. Back in the days, I was a bit more handsome then. But then as soon as I was like 13, 14, 15, 16, it started thinning out real quick.
Wow.
And so high school, it just became clear. And, the thing is at that age, no one knows what to do with you, right? Yeah. I love what you're doing, man, because when I was that age, there was no one that could help me, right? Yeah. There's no one getting me. And it's weird because I feel like I was looking up balding men what to do on the internet back in the days when like 2001.com crisis was like, what's happening? And there wasn't information out there. So I felt really lonely. And it's funny because my dad was I had balding men all around me, but I think that they had a hard time talking about themselves. Right. And so they didn't know what kind of feedback or advice to give me. So I felt it was on my own. So I was thinning out so what became is, of course, like this started happening.
Yes.
And I tried to hold on for dear life, girl. I mean, I was holding on. Me and
you both, Dustin, me and you both.
Yeah, and of course, I didn't know. Of course, nowadays we know a little bit more about it, and you can easily, if I was back then, now I was like, okay, slow this down with some weird chemicals. Mm-hmm. But I'm 16, 17, 18. Now I'm going into undergrad, and if I let it grow out too long, because it would happen is like this was thinning out up top, and then this would bowl out, and I would gain like in 1 week, 2 weeks, I would start looking like I gained 10 years on my life, just like, it's just like, what is going on? It's a mess.
So just a question here, bro.
Yeah.
As you were noticing the thinning, did you feel like other people around you were noticing as well? Were they saying things? Were they jokes? Or was this mostly an internal battle you were kind of fighting?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough. I really wasn't bullied or made, I think maybe I was just lucky. I know there's other people that were bullied back in high school and stuff. But I think I was lucky enough that people didn't really come for me. It was just, I think it was a respect thing. And so, I think I just was a personality and in that own way, it was just kind of like, it was part of my visual, who I was.
Yeah.
But it was an internal thing. I mean, at that time I was definitely a bigger kid, overweight, balding. I felt like a sweaty swamp creature, I think, and at that time I didn't know I was also gay. And
okay.
I think I had some built-up homophobia building up. So I think what it became part of was this big melting pot of, it sounds brutal, but self-hatred, right? It was just in self-image hatred, and feeling like I was out of control. And so my body image. And so that just got packaged up and threw into the back and forgot about the key and said, I don't care, you know? And, but yet deep down, you look in the mirror every single day and you do think, I wish it was a little different, or there's not much I can do. You just got to keep sharpening foot. Got to the point where you wouldn't look at yourself in the mirror because you wouldn't want to feel that pain. I would be in the gym, you know, and you're working out and you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, oh, you know, that's tough. So yeah, I didn't, the problem, but of course, that is that body image, it all got packaged together and I gave up a little bit. And I didn't, and it kind of came to the point where I stopped thinking I had any power over the situation. And that powerlessness, of course, I think seeds itself into who we are and our, where we believe, I started believing that I could, at least I could control and have power over my academia, my involvement in the classroom and in the school and doing all these various things. And I could, you know, I could learn and do some really cool things. So I don't necessarily, I do forgive myself for that time. And I don't necessarily regret that I spent a lot of time caring less about my physicality and well-being and far more about others and building cool shit and learning a lot of cool things.
But
and
Justin, you bring up a really good point, man, in terms of how guys would try to compensate for what they're lacking. Because I think when I was going through my hair loss process, I immediately started working out immediately. And I was always a relatively skinny guy, never worked out much, but I felt like I needed to do something else to overcompensate for me losing my hair. Like to your point, looking in the mirror to me was tragic, always having to be like, damn, like, what am I going to do with this? Put a hat on, wearing a hat 24/7. So I went to the gym. I started working out to learn that you were able to actually utilize, you know, your academics, your extracurriculars to actually feel like, hey, maybe, you know, my self-image isn't what I want, but what I'm putting out into the world is still amazing. So I think that's a really cool insight on how guys do end up having to cope with what they're going through.
Yeah, you know, and so absolutely. And you know, I think was it a good thing? But you know, I think I certainly, I think, you know, it's a very American idea to say if we're failing, we must be productive in that failure or otherwise. And versus realizing that, you know, it sucks to lose your hair. And I think because it's the first evidence that there isn't much we can do to reverse something that is happening to you, right? There is beauty in that learning. Of course, again, American idea of we must feel productive in our failure. But the funny thing is, of course, you know, part of what we're talking about today is actually you do have immense power over deciding and having control over what you do with your hair, right? And coming to that honest realization that, well, we don't got those beautiful locks. Don't get me wrong. I love dating people with great hair, you know. it's like, I can't have it, but I can have a partner that has it. Or having a dog, you know, it's like full of hair. Great. Okay. But like, you know, I guess the point where, you know, it was the first step, I think, in my life, somewhere in my early 20s, I said, okay, so somewhere I learned along the way, I was reading somewhere, was something on YouTube, but I don't know. And someone said, I think I asked someone, hey man, like, when did you decide to cut it off? Like, when did you decide it was time? And he's, you know, this guy's full of humor. He goes, well, you know, when California separates from the continental United States, that's time, you know? And I'm like, oh my God, that's so funny. And so I said, okay, maybe that's my point, right? Maybe there's a moment when this little tuft, whatever that is, there's going to be a little island happening here. That's when I have to be like, it's like, I have to prepare, you know? And then, so it was setting kind of a point of being like, there's a point of no return, because at the end of the day, you just look like just, come on, man. But you just don't look that great, you know. But I think you had the question coming out, and I looked up, there was this great report or study, and I don't know if it was really anything legitimate, but I think it was done by a legitimate firm. They did a big study where they asked a bunch of people, surveyed people, I think it was women in particular, physicality of men, and attributes of those men, and powerful and confident and all these different things, far and away in this study. And it turned out that women that were surveyed ranked bald men that actually had fully gone bald as far and above anyone else in attributes: powerful, confident, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
I'm like, damn.
I've seen that study.
Yeah, right. I mean, that tells you something. But I think it was, I think it wrestles with this idea of control. And that for me was, I think, one of my first doses of, well, Dustin, you've done such great work in your life to take control of your learning and building companies and doing all these different things, or companies or startups, whatever. And not to say they're any big, but when you're like 16 doing something like that's kind of cool. That maybe this is the first time when you can say you can make a choice for yourself. And of course, I looked up also, big successful bald men, and it also helps when Vin Diesel just looks at you at the face. And you look, if he can have it, I can have it too. And I went to I think Floyd's 99 in Uptown. I think my last time I went there. Okay. I mean, that, I learned I'm going to save some money too. I spent on everything else, but
before we get to this day, because I think you're about to hit the point where you actually decide to come home. Did you, during that hair loss process, did you decide to actually try anything? I know you did your research. Did you try Rogaine?
I was a goner, man. I was a goner, because the thing about those products is that they say they only help you back then we didn't have things that help to regrow. And the thing about cosmetic surgery and stuff, I'm looking at certain other things because I've lost so much weight that, like there's certain types of tummy tucks and things like that might be important, where it just gets into a weird category of like permanent crap you do to yourself that really doesn't, are you sure? So, and also they're all very salesy. So you're not really sure if this is the right thing for you, because I think they're trying to sell shit to you. So at that time, there wasn't a lot of options. I was so young at that time too, where I didn't really think that was worth it. And the products were about preventing or slowing down. Well, California has been separated from the United States. There is no slowing it down. There's only choosing to move on.
Okay.
And do you want to wear a wig at 18? Like, come on, man. Like, that ain't gonna happen. But I think there's something interesting in this question where do you cover it up or do you become confident?
Yep.
And
the latter is easier said than done, though, Dustin.
Oh shit.
Right? Let's talk about it.
Well, I remember at this time I was 235, 240 pounds. I was going north, man. And beauty is something that I think I wanted so much and searched externally for, but yet it's within you the entire time. You just have to be willing to see it. And I think, that study and kind of looking at these bald, powerful men really helped me to affirm that you just need to take control of the situation. And when I was a bigger dude, they'd always say, one of the biggest, weirdest things is being at the pool. Do you take the shirt off or do you leave it on? Right? Yeah. Trust me, that is one of the most anxiety inducing questions for a bigger person. And people always say you have to own it. You have to own being a bigger person, because if you don't, it's going to rip a hole in you and it's going to destroy you. And that's the problem about being a bigger person. It is extremely traumatizing. And I think, and it is in all the things and all the manifestations of the world, and you beat yourself up, but being bald is part of it. It just entered that equation. So one of the first things where I was like, you kind of have to own this and recognize, I think it's unfortunate I felt alone in it, because that's not fair. Because it's the least talked about club is the bald man's club. But when you get into that club, I'm like, you fucking look good in that bald. And I look at these guys that bald, I'd be walking around and when I got to that, you start realizing that there's this kind of unspoken language among bald men. We kind of, we pay respect to one another. And, I always talked about how if you rub your bald head against another bald guy's head, you open up a black hole in the universe somewhere. That's powerful, baby. And, and there's humor in it. And, but that came after, I think. It was fucking scary though. It was scary. Yeah.
Justin, I think you bring up another really good point. That parallel you just drew between folks who are struggling with weight and deciding, hey, like, can I take my shirt off at this pool? Should I get into the pool with my shirt on instead? To me, is a direct parallel to men who maybe out somewhere with the hat on. Either their hairline is going back, they may be balding here, or they may be already bald and just haven't stepped into that confidence with it yet. So when you have that hat on, it's kind of the same parallel to that shirt.
Yes.
Like, am I confident enough to come out to take my hat off? Or I'm going to keep the hat on the entire time.
Yeah. Well, you know what's so interesting is I knew as I was losing my hair that wearing a hat was in a weird way trying to cover up a reality. And so I never wore hats.
Wow.
Yeah, I never wore hats. And because I think that was like, I felt like that was so giving into trying to hide from the truth, that I was willing to live in the truth for way too long and not do anything about it. And that was a weird. Plus, you know, and so trust me, it took me a long time to wear hats. I mean, I was bald. I told myself as a bald man, I didn't wear hats for the longest time. And then I started wearing them recently, in the last 2 years. One, because God, they're great with the sun. And two, they look fucking great. And bald men look so good in hats.
Come on now.
And with a cut, and you look, oh my God, and they become a fashion symbol.
Nice.
And, you know, an accessory that adds color and depth to what you do. But I think I approached it differently, right? I mean, then it's you're using a hat to cover something up. Now you use a hat to express yourself fully. And I think that's it's just a completely different, you know, mind screw, right? But also but I think that goes back to the very essence about why, when you choose to go bald and take control of your physical form, I think for a lot of men, I don't think I'm alone in thinking that taking control of your sexual health, your mental health, your physical health, your well-being, and your look and your self-image, it's not a normal thing to do, right?
Yeah.
And
you're preaching right now. You're preaching because. And we're gonna, you know what, we'll get into it now, because I think this is the way the conversation is going. I don't want to try to make this too rigid. I want to just talk about what's happening right now. You bring up a really good point, man, because I think tons of guys. I'm 31 now, and it's never been until really the last 6 months. And I hate to say that COVID had something to do with it, but it probably did. But with all these distractions out of the window and me just having to sit with myself 24/7. First time ever I've really been super conscious about my mental health, my spirituality, my self-image, my physical health, all in one. Never has there been another time where I felt like, oh, this is actually this important. Never has there been a time where I felt like, hey, maybe I should seek therapy to really have a better understanding of some of the things I'm going through right now. And, I think it's important that guys talk about that one. So I'm glad that you brought that up. But I also think it's super important that guys look at that holistically for themselves, not just one piece. Like, it's not cool if I just have the six pack, but my emotional intelligence is way off, right? It's not cool if I have very, very strong emotional IQ, but I am super obese. Like, all of these things need to be in balance, man. So when you talk about that, can you go a little bit more in depth on how you got to the point where you understood like all this is important?
Yeah. I love that, because it's kind of this idea. You mentioned that the nirvana of is like, it turns out that all comes from the same place. And that when you start that there's a nature of congruence and purity in Genesis, from this, like, you realize that something's that confidence in yourself is one of the greatest human things, right? It's so human, but it's also so precious. And also relies on so much to be firing at all, you know. So I'm with you 100%. Taking control of of going bald was one of the first steps. And it was, in a lot of ways, I had this visual that came up, and I don't know what exactly it was, but it felt like this ball of twine. And in my life, this ball of twine that represented all these things about my body image and the things I took away. I talked about the thing I threw behind me, and I found it in the yard. I pulled it back and I said, this is a mess. And you need to, like, you need to start facing the noise on this. And this is my 20s, right? The 20s are the era of wavering confidence for all of us. We start to figuring out our shit. And like going bald for me and really taking control of that was a pulling of the twine. And then it led to, other body image issues, from going to the gym more often and maybe learning to eat a little healthier. And maybe I do have more control over this, right? And damn, I look good, right? Like or the lesson, like, yo, when you are just starting to shave your head for the first time, it was such an important lesson to know that, Dustin, you can go as slowly as you need to and use as much, play some music, and you can use as much that, shit as you need to.
We're talking about that self-care now, Dustin. What you're getting into now, I think, is important. Because as I talk to bald guys about what that shaving routine looks like, there's different routines. Some guys will hop in the shower and just try to get it done as soon as possible. But there's other guys who will set up a whole
routine
situation. They'll have the music playing. I talked to a guy who said, man, I'll light a candle. I'll have my my whiskey in the glass, and I'm like,
just, oh damn, he's got a whiskey going. Oh, yeah, man. Well, and so we'll go there tomorrow. I mean, I think I learned that, and I think I realized I had as much control over my personal experience as I needed to feel comfortable in this moment of my life. And my back hair, I started shaving, right? And I started realizing how important that was, and how I felt when I ate healthier, and all these different things. It all started to kind of coalesce, and you could start seeing how this ball of twine was the nature of feeling that I had more power over my self-image and my wellness and my health that I thought I did. And fast forward, right? I mean, my physical well-being, my health, coming out was really important because it allowed me to take control of and really kick into high gear the feeling that I deserved love, right? And from myself and from other people. And I also deserve to love who I wanted to. And I think a lot of that helped to really format that I could be more courageous and confident in myself. Now, fast forward, right, to your point, COVID got to the point where I always felt very confident that I could manage objectively my mental health. But then I realized it got too much. It got to be too much. There's too much happening at once. And I started realizing that I had a lot of crap that started surfacing, from how my relationships with best friends worked, and the fact that I had weird patterns of behavior there when I got close to people. Or fact is, when you lose 60, 70 pounds, you bet your ass you got body dysmorphic disorder. It is up there, and it is evil, and it tears you away. And when you look at them every single day, you do not look the same. Some days you have bad body dates, and some days you think you look fucking great, and that's just how it is. And I started realizing this is some real stuff, and this is real anxiety, and and it could lead down to some dark places. And so, to your point, I got myself a therapist too, and also found some things, to your point, about really learning, especially as a man, what it means to just be a person of love and have compassion. And where I have a family, our family we grew up probably more in anger than we grew up with sadness, right? And so that was kind of our main mode, right? So and those are all things I had to wrestle with. And I think all of that, to your point, all stems around the fact that the more I figured out I could be a person with good vibes and love, and the more I could love myself, and the more I could love others, it all comes from the same place. And the more I had the confidence and the courage to, be healthier, and to treat my body with more respect, and to give myself, the therapist was like, you need to stop being so discompassionate towards yourself, because you are just ripping yourself up every single day, and that's not fair. And it took COVID for me to realize I need to change my personal language, things I say to myself, and to build up confidence and courage. And because, listen, if you're at the gym, you're a piece of crap, put weight, pull it harder, versus, man, you're doing great today. And I think you can do 5 more pounds, and I think you can do 1 more set. I think you got this. That's a different language.
Totally.
And that that there's, you know, if you have that bad negative mindset, it's going to plateau the crap out of your journey. But what to break through the plateau of your physical wealth and your well-being and everything at work, when you switch how you speak to yourself, holy crap, it unlocks an entire domain of possibility for you. It's all in the same.
The perspective is everything, man. And though you know, this is funny because normally these conversations, they're supposed to be more therapeutic for the guest, but now I feel like it's therapeutic for me, bro, because I want to talk about something personal that happened for me during COVID for sure. I had never really ever felt alone. Honestly, most of my life ever felt alone. I've always had tons of friends. Always so used to being around people that I remember when COVID hit, you know, come say like COVID hits in March, come around like late April. My roommates are like, they're gonna leave and go home. And I'm like, wait, nah, don't do that. I don't want to be here by myself. Like I've never lived by myself. This is gonna suck. Yeah, I'm like, this is gonna suck. Please, y'all stay. At least one of y'all stay. They both end up leaving. I'm like, yo, I don't know what I'm gonna do like here by myself. And I found myself thinking I was gonna hate living alone, but I loved it because it allowed me to have the time to really learn myself so much more. I think I learned something more about myself over the last year than the previous 29 or 30, right? And I think that was super important for me to understand where I was lacking, to understand and just sit in my, because I also just came out of a breakup maybe 4 months before that. So, you know, going into COVID, you know, when you used to have somebody that you talk to every single day, now that person is not there anymore. Now you're just by yourself. And I'm like, wow, I'm sitting here with my own emotions. I'm really rethinking back through the relationship. Like, dang, what did I do wrong? It was just a lot going on, man. And but I think I came out of it, you know, a better person. I had to feel like, yo, I thought, am I depressed right now? Like, what am I going through? Because I was feeling emotions I never felt before. Thank God I had friends to talk to about it here. I had a therapist to talk to about it as well to kind of get through that, man. But I think your story, just mentioning that, really just kind of blew my mind and reminded me of the journey I've been through over the last, you know, 8 to 10 months. And how I also think how that plays a part in with me building Come Home. I think all of it is kind of one and the same, because to me, building this thing, it started out just being about bald heads, but then it grew into more of a manhood thing. It's like, what else are guys struggling with? What else do we need to talk about to make sure that we're all on a level playing field, and the things that we learned growing up as to what a man should be or what a man is supposed to be, that we're kind of looking at that with a side eye now, like, yo, that was actually incorrect.
That's yeah. Amen, man. I'm so glad that that's why I did not realize that you were going on a very similar journey than I was, you know. And but isn't that why it is? I tell people how absolutely humbled I am by I think just it's something happens at 3 decades of life. I don't know what it is, because this happens to a lot of folks. I'm not everyone, but I think it happens. I hear it's a very common thing where you kind of turn around and you're like, but what is going on? You know, and like, and to your point, it's like it is. You know, finding meditation as a standard. I was doing yoga long before, and so that was helpful. But truly going into meditation as a practice during COVID and during my therapeutic. And man, I tell you, when you finally feel that moment of just quiet, calm in your mind, and calm contentness, and that calmness is like nothing you've experienced in your life. And it is the purest form of joy. It is the vacation in that moment of infinity, right? It is incredible. Of course, I sound like some, you know, but it's hard to describe it. And you start realizing that all along you could have had that, right? You could have had that quiet, but now, and in that moment, you start realizing, you start letting thoughts back, and you start feeling objectively, and you go, I feel anxious, or something about the situations make you feel uncomfortable. But even in your journey, you have friends that are going through things, and they tell me about something, or something that someone said to them. And I said, you know, I have a thing on my wall that says, there is love behind all things. And men we are, well, I mean, we are, one of the biggest things I learned this year is that we have love ships that pass in the night. We are horrible at telling each other how much we love each other, and how much we care about one another and how much we care about our friendships. And, you know, when I started pivoting and realizing that our men and or like our friendship, our behavior towards one another as and how we react to behavior, sometimes it feels like I'm reacting with anger over something that my friend did. And it turns out that my best friend never meant any ill will. And I'm mad because I'm disappointed because I care about that person so much. And it is so interesting that my emotions and I react to my neurotices and my frustrations or anger comes and stems from a place of love. It blew my mind, right? And allows me to kind of jump forward very quickly and realize that, you know what, I feel frustrated, but I feel frustrated not at you or anything and whatever I feel. And one, it's because I think I'm maybe disappointed in myself. Now I handled something or what I said, but then you realize I'm like, one, I gotta have love for myself. I'm happy I have this moment so I can learn from it. And also, you know, I'm frustrated because I just wanted to spend quality time with you. You matter to me. You know, and so I'm going to tell that, and like it strangely allows you to get to the point of what is fueling your emotion. And to your point, it is crazy that it took me COVID and therapy and sitting with my shit, like you said, for me to really learn that. And I think to have that revelation and to really figure out that I think it is so exciting to move forward in this world and to, I think, build companies like what you're doing or experiences from a place of really from a genesis and a sense of intention. Mm-hmm. And like for you, it's like you love and you want men to really just love themselves and be confident, man. Like I love that story because I think when they figure that out for themselves, I think they're going to turn around and love and be more and try to spread that confidence in others and be there for one another. And one of my best friends from Minneapolis, we talk a lot more now than we ever did pre-COVID. And I tell him often how much I care for him. And it really changes the dynamic because it's something about knowing that your guy friend or whatever that might be, has your back and knows you so well. And no matter what, that allows you to go off into the world, man, and really push yourself to your limits. And because you know people got you. And that's important stuff. Anyway, I'm going off on some tirade here. Yeah.
This is already my favorite episode, honestly, man. Because it's really again, it's therapeutic for me to think through some of the things that we're discussing here. Because even, you know, I grew up in a family of 5, 2 sisters, both parents. Love my family to death, but I definitely didn't. I wouldn't say I grew up really knowing what love was. My parents provided everything we needed for sure. But I didn't grow up around like, you know, tons of affection or, you know, I didn't see my parents like hug and kiss often. That kind of thing. So I think a lot of that when I grew up and started dating, it was tough for me to be incredibly affectionate towards my last girlfriend. And this is what she wanted because she saw that from her parents growing up. But I thought that was weird, you know. And then also, you know, all of my friends, I thought it would be weird too if my friends saw me like being this like quote unquote simp, you know, who's all over his girl. Like, dude, like, what are you doing? So like, I never wanted to do any of that. I was like, that's not my style. But literally wasn't until COVID, I lost her and I sat down with myself and I would see like, you know, scrolling Instagram sometimes and seeing like, you know, couple stuff. In the past, I'd see that and be like, oh, that's super soft. It was the first time ever I would see like couples on Instagram and be like, damn, what did I do to not deserve that? Like, you know, where did I fuck up at? So just went through so much in learning about, you know, how to love not only myself, but others too. You know, my homies definitely being more than comfortable saying, yo, I love you, bro. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And then also picking that up with my family too. Like, hey, like me and my family, we text more and communicate more often than we ever did before. And it's so like, it's amazing to feel that genuine like connection with your siblings and your parents that maybe was missing in the past. Who knows for what reason? But we kind of have that now, and man, it's such a beautiful thing, dude.
Oh yeah, dude, that's amazing, man. I'm so glad you told me about that. I haven't, as far as partners and stuff, I have a whole lot of work to do, but it gives me a lot of confidence. I think hearing, I think partially I know when I moved to Chicago, it's been going online. So, hey, I'm a bachelor. No, but like that I do plan to start dating. And I think part of it is because I feel like now more than ever, I'm ready to. And something about, I read something, there's a poem in Milk and Honey about the nature of finding someone that you can, it's not about finding someone that you can light up and that can light you up. It's about being, like, when you are together, you shine so bright that you can burn the city to the ground, right? And I love that. And so in case, but it's wild, man. I think I a similar this year and very recently, my father and I, we're on, I think, just mutual terms now. It's not like we ever had a problem. It's just, it's just a different relationship. And it was very, very strange to have to say those words, because I think my father, is figuring out his way still when it comes to how to, this is helpful because the therapist really knows how to talk through daddy issues, really figure out, hey, I just want to let you know I love you, man. And I do. And, and I also recognize that everybody shows love differently, like you said, right? And being less, or I grew up in a very, a big old Italian affectionate family, right? And so, but I have friends who don't know how to hug. And as my mom always says, it's okay. Some people grow up differently, but you better show those friends how to hug, but to your point also, like, let's be real. I personally don't like it when I see a bunch of PDA, public displays of affection between two couples and a bunch, at a house party, it gets a little bit like, okay, like there's some things private, I don't know, with jealousy thing, I don't know. So that's, hey man, I'm glad that you're doing that, and glad that you have that with your friends.
Yeah.
It really changes things. It really does. And God, you feel it, don't you?
Oh, dude.
It makes you tear up every time your friend tells you, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, man.
Oh, I love this guy.
I think it's, for a while, I tell people I love them in the past and not really even know what that meant. It just felt like, yeah, I'm supposed to say it back, right? Yeah. I love you, I love you. But it didn't really, it was just a word for me. It's really now that I'm understanding, oh, what is the feeling that really supposed to come along with that word? You know what I'm saying? And I think I still have a long way to definitely be 100% clear on what that exactly means. But I feel that word more now than I ever did. I could say that word 3 years ago and not mean a thing by it, honestly, not feel a thing and not
be a pass.
Yeah. But now it definitely means a different thing, and I definitely use it much more intentionally than I did in the past, man. So that's dope. I want to get us back on track. This has been amazing.
Yeah, well, I was gonna finish off, and hopefully, like as RuPaul always says, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you gonna love anybody else? Can I get an amen? And I'm just gonna get back to, like, this idea about love and compassion really does. I mean, I don't know if I think learning how to care and love and be more compassionate towards myself, which comes part of this journey, right? It allows us to love other people and learn what that is like. So it's important. That starts with learning how to be bald and taking control.
So Dustin, the day you finally decide to come home, I think you said you went to Floyd 99. Is this a
Floyd's 99? Yeah. I went to those barbers, man. They know a few things. So I think I did some research and whatever, so I could feel confident. And I always have to build these big old task lists. It's like I have to do research. Because now I trim like chest and torso and all of it. So yeah, but I went to the barber and I told him, listen, I'm pretty nervous about, I want to shave my hair. And he says, there's a level where they're professionals, man. These barbers, the barbers are like you and 15 other guys that came in the day, you know what I mean? And he says, well, here's what we're going to do. Usually what I like to do, and I like, because he's very consultative, right? I love the consultative mentality in others. He just said, he's like, feel out my head, it's like feeling out my head. He's like, you got a good head, it's like, I don't know. It's like, what's going on? He's like, yeah, you don't got any weird like mold spots, it's like, okay. I'm like, it's talking on my confidence, right? I got a good shaped head.
Yep.
And then he said, like, we're just going to trim it down to 1 or 2 millimeters, right? And the idea of that is that you can grow it back real quick if you don't like it. But of course they know, they know that you ain't coming back from this girl. So, he did it. And I think it was a shocker at first. I mean, you look at yourself in the mirror, you're like, whoa. And that is an interesting thing. That's the first type of moment of shock you have when you look at yourself in the mirror and you do look different. But it's that moment of shock where you're like, is this a bad different, or I'm not used to it, but there's something about this different, right? And that's what it was. And that's my first time experiencing that. And, I've had that many more times, everything from, shaving my torso, my chest. I'm like, whoa, okay, I will not go back. And so went back, and I was lucky enough to have these big, thick rimmed glasses at the time. Those really stupid, expensive ones. So you couldn't get Warby Parker. And so, there's something about these thick rimmed glasses and a bald head. When I looked in the mirror, I'm like, oh, like there's something creative in it. It kind of brought out a certain identity that I saw in the mirror. And I started to attribute, and it was my grandmother, man. I got, I was like, on the phone with my grandma and whatever we had at the time. And she goes, oh, Dustin, you look like a director, like a film director, and something about that was really important to me here. Because I just like what I was hoping, I guess, by seeing powerful men and proud and with, taking control of their baldness and being proud about and being fashion icons. She saw me, I think, in some way become part of, obviously, as a director and a producer and a film and a creative, and that's very much part of who I am. And so at that time, I think she saw in me maybe what I wanted to become. And so, and she saw creativity and power and excitement and inspiration. And so thank you, Grandma. But I think she helped me understand that in myself. And then I learned to shave that sucker off. It was weird at the moment, but you start to attribute identity and meaning to it. You start to be more confident in it. And that was the first time I think I truly started to feel what confidence felt like when you take control of something of your body. And that was cool. It was cool.
And that positive affirmation, when you get that first cut, is low-key game-changing. And that's been a thread that I've found as I talk to so many different guys throughout this Bold miniseries, is so many guys were able to get some kind of positive affirmation that same day. And they like, hey, that did wonders for my confidence. When I heard somebody say, hey, like, you look great. Or like, I remember for me, I went bald, and the first woman that I saw after that, I think I was driving. I got the cut, put my hat on immediately, because I was just like, I cannot believe I did this.
I'm freaking out.
So nervous about it. I stopped to get food somewhere, and the cashier was this younger woman, and I ordered, and I'm waiting for my food, and I kind of hear them giggling. She was giggling with somebody else that was like another woman who
You're
was
like,
working.
oh shit.
I'm like, yeah, I'm like, fuck, they're like killing my new bald head. Like, I'm like, this sucks. So I turn around, and they're like, hey, I'm like, yeah, what's up? And they're like, we're trying to guess how old you were. And I'm thinking, I think I'm like, I'm really like,
and I'm older because
I'm in me, like, I'm like 45 now. So and I'm like, okay, guess. And they're like, no, well, we already have our guess. You have to tell us. And I'm like, okay, I'm 27. And they're like, wait, what? Like, oh my God. Both of them like, yeah, we thought you were like 24. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm thinking I'm
just lost years. What is going on?
Yeah. I'm like, what in the world? So again, it's kind of all me fighting my own like internal ghost, really, because folks on the outside are not seeing your new look like the way you're seeing it. You're beating yourself up. But realistically, the people from the outside, a lot of the times love it. And to what you said earlier, a lot of times people think you're more confident now. They think you're more powerful now. You're more dominant now because of your new look.
Yeah. Well, external validation is such an intriguing thing. And because I think there's a study that said for every negative comment you give, now it's also, that includes from yourself, you have to, what, it takes like 7 or 8 or something like that, positive affirmations in order to repair the damage that does to your psyche. And you can imagine living your life as a person that is balding and having that negative, just ingesting those negative viewpoints of yourself over time, that men don't get compliments often, I'll be frank. And so and so that's why I'm someone, I think I try to give compliments when I see it. But external validation, of course, can have a negative side, right? Always seeking it out can be problematic, because at the end of the day, it's one, there's a repair state, right? It's like, it is letting you know, it's like validating. It's like, okay, actually, I think I'm on the right course. And then there's a moment where that external validation has to truly become internal validation. It has to really be stem from you and be like, no, actually, like, hey, you need to tell yourself that you look good. And when you finally tell that to yourself, and that really starts to work away at that mountain of shit that you've been like tucking away. So I'm with you, man. And so, and hopefully that's interesting. You're right. Like everybody kind of, like my brother just shaved it all off too. And you're right. The first thing I said was that you look good, man. And it is interesting that is almost like a universal thing. And hopefully it means that everybody knows that that when a man takes that leap of faith, or frankly, a cancer patient does it, right? Like it's all the same. The first things coming out of mouth, regardless, is you look great. Yeah. Because you're right. What a gift to also give someone as a compliment in that moment of vulnerability. Damn.
Yeah. And you just reminded me of something else that's important to come home. When me and Mijo were building this, one thing we thought about was how can we have a social impact angle to the business too? And immediately we thought about cancer patients. But like, hey, how can we donate a portion of our proceeds, a portion of our profit to cancer research? Because we know so many people deal with that with chemotherapy. They lose their hair, and they may feel ashamed about that. So as we continue to build this thing for men, we don't want to forget about other people who may deal with hair loss and how that may affect them as well. So that's something that we definitely are thinking about. So as we continue to grow this company, y'all make sure I hold us to that.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're gonna keep going here, Dustin. You finally came home. Your grandma has showed you all of this love, so you're kind of feeling good. At that point, how do you decide what products you're going to start to use now? Are you going to the barber to get your new shave every time, or did you decide like, hey, this is going to be me? I'm going to take care of my own new look now.
Yeah, I am a guy that likes value, and so I often will take what seemed to be a tough situation and say, well, here are the upsides, and so. Knowing that I had to fully accept this baldness at the time, I didn't think about the upward satisfaction of like, oh, you actually look great. I thought I'm going to save a lot of money, So not having to go to a barber and waste all that time and sit there and oh God, and I will miss, the head rubs, but like, let's that's $20, like calm down. So, I wanted to learn to do it myself, right? And I think I was part of this idea of taking control of my destiny a little bit. And I think in early state, I think of what it meant to learn the craft. And that was that early time. And so being a bald person, and it is a craft. And I think also knowing how to shave, and obviously you got this beautiful beard, man, like, what it's like to what does it mean to self-image is a craft, right? And it really is something that you spend time learning how to do. And so, yeah, man, I did the research. I found that I think, this ATX razor, started doing that, of course, doing it myself. That it's sensitive at first, isn't it? She's sensitive. And so I got those like red blotches. And so you kind of learn as you go. But yeah, no, I kind of settled in, and I was getting like red blotches, or like it would always feel, I don't know, like all these different things. So I figured it out and did a bunch of research, really realized for the first time that skin care routine is important. I don't apply that to other aspects of my body until later, but learned the method that, okay, you have to exfoliate that bald head. I do it every day, and then I have this old ATX razor head blade. I like that thing because you could put between your fingers and it kind of rides it. Learn very quickly about nick spots, so you have to be very careful. Take it slow, take it smart, and the importance of, good razors and all that stuff. So, exfoliate. I think at the time I was trying to do like an electric razor thing, but at a certain point, I was like, just go straight for it and do the whole thing. And then you can start doing it by feel, not by look, which is wild. So
it's definitely a learning curve with shaving your hair for real. It's something that, I actually started off with electric only because I was so nervous to actually put a razor.
It's terrifying, man. Yeah.
So nervous.
People with like straight razors, you're like, oh my God.
Yo, I'm so scared to try that. Have never tried it, and I probably will never try that straight razor. Yeah, just not for me. Not saying it's not for, guys watching. It may be for you, but for me, it's definitely not for me.
Yeah, I think someone has to kind of be there to show you, because I know you can get a really good cut that way.
Yeah.
But I can get a good cut with all the other stuff I have. So it's fine.
And it's cool to hear about, the way you thought about it, taking control of your destiny so you wouldn't have complete ownership of this entire situation. I have this thesis, bro, that self-care also is kind of there's an extension of the self-care kind of spectrum, right? There's the meditation, there's the, spirituality, but there's also the the facial care, the skin care, all of that to me is like a spectrum of self-care. And that ties back into, if you're able to look good, feel good, then that also goes into your performance. That goes into how you feel in so many other avenues of life. So as we're building Come Home, I think it's super important for us to try to make sure that men understand it's not just about your, how you're looking and how your scalp is looking. It also extends to your mental health, to your spiritual health, all things that we kind of already talked about.
Yeah, man, it's about having your house in order. And I think as we talked about confidence, it took me a while to learn that confidence is it's at the core, and you're right. It's like a hub and spoke. And when I was talking about that little ball of twine I was pulling, at the heart of that ball of twine, it turned out to be my confidence about who I am. And it took a long while for me to kind of uncover it and show it and become beautiful in that way, and recognize, beauty and physicality, but beautiful in self and beautiful in character and personality and how you treat other people. It turns out it's all kind of stemming from the same place, and you got to feed it. Yep. You do. You have to, it's easy to say, when you're looking good tonight and you're about to go out in the town and show up and you look just dressed so good and you're telling yourself those messages. I mean, I get it. Sometimes it becomes arrogance and overconfidence, but like there is a level of those things matter and how you feel about yourself. And you're right. And I've worked with a lot of speakers and coaching speakers. And I learned a lot of lessons from that about how to really work with people and bring them on their journey. But a crisis of confidence is one of the most awful deteriorations of it's a disease, right? A syndrome, and one that can take months to recover from. And someone can waver your core confidence so harshly in yourself. It's so crazy to see how that can seep out into every aspect of your life, at work, and your friendships, and your relationships, and how you take care of yourself. It is crazy how much, if you are core and you're strong in your core, everything else seems to be going okay. And your financial well-being, your ability to engage friends, your ability to kind of keep shit together regardless of what's thrown at you. But sometimes that wavers, and it sometimes wavers because of other people. And it affects everything else. So it's at the core of everything, man. It's crazy. But to your point, go bald, man, look good. Like, that's the start of a big old journey. I get it. I love it.
So, Dustin, what we're going to do now, because you just mentioned going bald, looking good. And one of the biggest things that we like to do here on this mini series, we like to do what we call the bald check. And the bald check is the opportunity for everybody that comes on here to kind of really show off their bald and see what they're working with, Dustin. So we need you right now to show it off a little bit, Dustin. Let's see what you got there, man.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. we got a model here, guys. We got a model. Amazing. Looks good. Super smooth ball, man. So, Dustin, we're gonna go to the lightning round next, man.
Yeah.
And the lightning round really just gonna be me asking you a few questions, and I want you to just think about it for a few seconds and give us the answer that comes to the top of your head immediately. All right. First question here. What would you say is your number one go-to grooming product? Your number one, you can't do anything without it. You need to have this product.
Yep, my head blade.
Head blade. Okay. Okay. The ATX.
My ATX razor. Yes.
All right. Question number two. We talked about hats a bit earlier, and we kind of talked about how for bald men, hats are really the only way to kind of have some variety. Only way you can switch it up as a bald man is to throw a hat on. Of all the hats that you ever owned, ever had, what is your favorite hat?
Yeah. I found storied hats, and they have the go-to black that for me. And then they have a jean one as well that I absolutely love. Those are they're beautiful. They fit my head perfectly and they just look slick.
Storied hats. Okay.
Yep.
Gotta check it out. Gotta check it out. Our next question here. You mentioned a few a little bit earlier, but we're gonna make you narrow it down to three. Who would you say are the top three most iconic bald men? Top three.
Yeah. Queer Eyes Karamo is
Okay.
amazing. Stanley Tucci is, he's one of my heroes. And of course, the holiness himself, Dalai Lama.
Nice. Okay, okay. Cool. And now we're gonna get a bit deeper, man. We got two of the final questions here, and these are gonna ask you to kind of take it a little bit deeper and kind of give some advice. So this question is gonna ask you if you knew somebody that was watching right now was actually still kind of fighting that fight, going through the hair loss struggle, haven't been able to accept it quite yet. What would be the advice that you would give to that person?
Yeah, man. One, it's this is your journey. And I love that we're focusing here on the statement. I think it's important to recognize that it's one, set up a line, right, that you won't cross, or at what point where you'll say that there's no turning back, right? Like we have to get it done. That helps to kind of establish a point in time that it's time to go in. And two, talk to your barber, right? They have seen and worked on so many men. And third, look up powerful dudes, right? There's a lot of good looking men out there, and that gives you a lot of confidence. And look about how they dress, how they style, how they hold themselves, and you'll realize that this is just the beginning of a really cool journey.
My man. Last but not least, Justin, this is my favorite question. It's going to be a good one because me and you have kind of delved deep into this already throughout the entire conversation. But as you know, Come Home is partly about, convincing men to finally, give up, shave their head, and embrace that natural evolution. But Come Home is also about manhood, right? Come Home is also about exploring what it is to be a man, thinking about masculinity. Mm-hmm. So from your standpoint, dude, what does it mean to be a man to you? What does manhood mean to you, kind of in your sphere? Explain manhood and how you think you look at that.
Yeah, thank you for this question. I've been operating in a queer space and then in LGBTQ communities for so long. So I very much have departed, I guess, from the notion of what a man should be, right? And the stereotypes that come with it. And have really kind of come to understand and ask the question for myself, what does it mean to be a good person? And in that way, I think being a man means being vulnerable, authentic, listening, loving, compassionate, and supportive, because those are things that we as men sometimes are expected not to be.
Yep.
And I really do believe that we need men and boys to really embrace those things. They're not soft, they're hard. They're really tough to be those things every day. And it takes a lot of learning like we have to get to the moment where we can embrace those values. And I think if we have more men and boys that focus on that and build those as core things to themselves, it will help us build a better, a more diverse and richer society, man. It's going to help us build great companies and great government and great friendships if we just focus on that first. So
yeah, I read a book not too recent, maybe over the summer or something, called Eloquent Rage. And I think there's a quote in there. The book mentioned that how the past framework for masculinity has really been the cause of so many issues and problems that we deal with in the world today, from colonialism, conquering other people, feeling like you need to defeat other people, et cetera, et cetera. So much of that is rooted in the past framework of manhood. So I think it's super important that we continue to challenge that notion going forward, man. I honestly, this has been one of my favorite episodes. There's been no episode where we've gotten this deep, talked super thoroughly, not only about the hair loss process, but really delve deep into the idea of manhood, masculinity, emotional intelligence. As Dustin says, keeping your entire house clean, Dog, man, I just got to thank you, bro. I appreciate you for taking your time to join us today. When I told me Joy going to get you on, he was super excited. He's like, no, this is going to be a really good episode, and you did not let us down, man.
Hey man, this has been a real pleasure, man. I really enjoyed talking to you, and really good to catch up with you, Kenny, and getting real deep with you too. It's been yeah, man, I feel like I've gotten a little closer to you.
Yeah, no, this was good, bro. This was good, man. This was good. Oh man, Dustin, tell the people how they can find you on whatever social media you may have. Tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, just Instagram is my place, just at Sweetheart Dustin, and follow me there. And I think that's been my main place. So that's where I'm going to stay for the time being.
Nice. Yo, thank you guys so much for tuning in, watching this episode. We know it's been great. Hit the comments below when you have a chance. I know you guys are going to have some amazing things to say about it. And until next time, like my boy says, clean your house. And if ever in doubt, remember to come home, guys. Catch you later.
All right. Thank you.